There was status quo at the top as the playoff contenders got the wins they need. What now for Alessandro Gentili as he gets dumped yet again? And we look ahead to what's in store this week, with or without Ekpe Udo. All this and more ahead on Sweet 16. Tune in.
Hello and welcome to the 15th episode of Sweet 16, an open look on EuroLeague basketball, wherein the essence of it every day is a EuroLeague day. But before that, let's start with saying hello to the greatest co-hosts, Emmett and Aris. Hi guys, how are you?
Hello, Moshe and Aris, and hello to all the viewers and listeners here off Sweet 16 from Dublin, where, well, it's starting to get a little less wet, which is a nice change. So, weather's improving.
And hello from Athens, which is no longer anymore the home of Alessandro Gentile, and where we are eagerly waiting the clash between Olympiacos and Darüşşafaka.
So, guys, the great show ahead of us. A lot of great games to talk about, a lot of incidents, a lot of, things we've noticed again through numbers. But Emmett, can you walk us through what are we expecting from this episode?
Well, yeah, of course, the race for spots 7 through and 8 continues to heat up as wins for all four of the contenders there. Zvezda, FS, Baskonia, and of course Dashka. So nobody blinked last week, but well, as we'll talk about it, FS did make an FS of the game. And of course there is, as Aris mentioned, the Alessandro Gentile news you've got to look at. What that means, and also in a way how little it means for the team losing him. And of course we're looking at the Ekpe Udo news, which is it's interesting because, collarbone injuries could go either way. We should know more before this comes out, so we're not going to be doctors in this. We're just going to talk about, Fenner needing that help. And of course, we'll look ahead to a pretty stacked round yet again of EuroLeague action where, well, frankly, there's an awful lot at stake as we're hitting those final furlongs before working out who's making the postseason. And, well, with that, let's get right to it and begin, as we always do, with the misnamed 4-minute warning. Hint, it's really 14.
4 minutes to get through all the action that just happened in EuroLeague. It's the 4-minute warning. And as ever, the 4-minute warning isn't quite 4 minutes, but, it's that time of season where there's too much to talk about, folks. So maybe let's call it the 4x4 minute warning in this case.
And we begin with, proof that once again, anything can actually happen in this league sometimes. As Galatasaray, a team who haven't exactly been impressing all that much this year, just went and beat league leaders Real Madrid 87-84. Not a lot to say, it's not going to impact too many things. But yeah, great win, Gala, showing you're still in the fight, at least trying to get the W's out there. I suppose more important thing to talk about briefly as well, Moshe, FS getting it done against another basement club, Unix Kazan.
So yeah, Emmett, you're probably spot on. I mean, FS Unix pretty much, all season long we've seen Unix try to make it hard in their home. But at the end of the day, it's their rivals who got their upper hand on it, simple as that. Great performance, great clutch plays by Derek Brown, and that's all she wrote. In overtime, obviously, because, they kind of had Keith Langford in the first 40 minutes. Aris, how did you enjoy the games of Zvezda beating Bamberg and Baskonia, getting back on their winning ways?
First of all, the game between Ritsan and Baskonia ended up being one more proof that Zvezda is playoffs bound. I believe that at this point, even if we still have some way to go, nobody believes that the Serbs will be left out of the playoffs. So beating a team which is very compact, it's very well trained and has one of the up and coming coach in Europe, Andrea Tricchieri, it was one more proof that Zvezda is the Cinderella of this season and will be in the big dance. On the other hand, Baskonia just needed this result. I believe that Baskonia also will be hard to be left out of the playoffs, but it was one of those games that you just have to win, and with Milano being out and on the bottom of the standing. So the good news for Baskonia is that not only they got the win, but they also got some big game from their key players, and nobody is more key than Adam Hanga. Baskonia needed this boost, not only standing wise but also moral wise, because they were on a slump. They had performed badly and they have lost enough games. So the way they played against Milano and the fact that they came back after a good start by Milano proves that they are still a very solid team, and they will create trouble for anyone in the playoffs.
You look at that result there, and it's a case of Baskonia absolutely positively could not lose this game. They went out, took care of business. In a not quite similar vein, but like I was saying, no one's doubting against him. Zvezda, again, losing to Bamberg would have actually been one of the few things you kind of go, that could derail a Cinderella story. That could actually be, an issue. So a business-like team isn't going to lose that game. Zvezda were business-like. Zvezda did not lose that game. Zvezda are going to the playoffs. Like, they're sixth now in a tie for fifth with Pau. Entirely plausible Zvezda overtake them. They're both 14-10 right now. My gut would say Pau hangs on to fifth and Zvezda stays sixth, but like if Zvezda had been told sixth at the start of the season, well, okay, they would have said to you, yeah, we're going to do that. But if you had told me, I'd have told you were an idiot. So proves that I'm the idiot, really, when you think about it. And I suppose, Moshe, like you look at sort of these games and, of course, the impact they have, and the team that I suppose was most annoyed by this, given they got an important win, is Darussafaka, because they go out, get that win against Panathinaikos, and all it does really is maintain that status quo.
Oh, without a doubt. But, first I really got to say that, Fener kind of managed to put an end to Žalgiris' amazing run and probably seal the deal for them in terms of not making it to the playoffs. Besides that, we're looking at the standings and we're looking at the numbers. And again, we see that Zvezda and Panathinaikos have made it to the barrier 14. The number of wins we thought would be essential in order to make it to the playoffs. And right now, it's an open race for the home court advantage, with Zvezda getting, their stride on. They got a lot of support, and I don't think that this is the last word we've heard from them, especially, when we're coming to the playoffs. There are 6 games left, and, well, let's just say that the race right now with Fener, uncertainty when it comes down to Ekpi Udo. Right now, let's say that Zvezda are in a place where they can do something very nice. I'm saying they can end up finishing, above Panathinaikos. We can end up getting a best of 5 series between Fener and Zvezda, with Fener having the home court advantage, or the slightly unlikely scenario in which we can get the Fener Zvezda playoff series with Zvezda having the home court advantage. There's there's a very, very interesting thing going on right there. I know that we have the fight for the number 8 spot, the last spot for the playoffs, and we also have, I think, another open spot for the home court advantage situation. So we'll see how this unfolds as the next weeks of EuroLeague action passes by. Obviously, great games ahead of us, but I really want to talk a bit more about Panathinaikos. Aris, Emmett, like I said, the numbers don't lie. We did say that the home court advantage, not home court advantage, but actually keeping your home safe throughout the season was a key factor in making it to the playoffs. But for Panathinaikos, it was pretty much it. They are 3-9. That is, their streak in away games, 3 wins versus 9 losses. So if I were, in their situation, if I was to be in their situation, the one thing that I would be, I don't want to say scared, but it would kind of makes me wonder is, or at least think, I don't want to be in a situation where I'm going to the playoff spots, to the playoff series, and not having the home court advantage. Now, I know you can say that playoffs is a different story, but Panathinaikos were consistent enough in their away games, weren't they?
Well, you are more than right. But on the other hand, Panathinaikos is a work in progress. It's still a work in progress, and with a decision to cut Gentile loose, which is not directly, but kind of tied with the fact that James Gist is coming back, and Gentile was the odd man out in the Greek league rotation. And there's also Nichols, who is kind of the forgotten man in the rotation and in the roster. Panathinaikos is still trying to find out how the team will play. It was a team build at the start of the season with many athletic bigs, and the idea of playing hard defense, pressure the opponent into turnovers, and then run the court and score in transition. This obviously changed when Pascual came on board, because we all know that Pascual is a very a coach that likes very much to control the tempo, and he doesn't really let his teams run. So this changed everything. This made Panathinaikos a team that wants to attack on the half court and also create a lot of chances for three-pointers. So this really changed the dynamic of the team, and I'm not so sure that Panathinaikos players are all right for this kind of game. So at this point, I don't feel that Panathinaikos is yet ready to produce what Pascual has really in mind. So yes, you are right, but that's the situation with Panathinaikos. It's not that they are not good enough. It's a matter of not being ready, or maybe not having the exact right personnel for what the coach wants. So yes, in theory and going by the numbers, if Panathinaikos does not get the home court advantage in the playoffs, and I believe that after losing to Darussafaka, it will be very hard for them to get the home court advantage. It's obvious that they are an opponent which in theory will not pose much trouble to the team that will have the home court advantage.
Yeah, and just to tie that off, like, it also doesn't hurt if you're Darussafaka if Brad Wanamaker just goes off and has one of those days where Brad Wanamaker treats it like he's playing, I know, the basement side in the Bundesliga. He just had one of those games where he was making those shots when they absolutely had to be made. And so that's the end of look of last week. A little briefer than normal, but because, well, we've done some pretty cool work for the next section. By we, I mean, of course, not me. I don't do the actual real hard work. I leave that to people who are actually good at it. And are actually, not likely to do shows in their dressing gown. So that leads us nicely on to the Coach's Playbook.
The Coach's Playbook, where we look at the strategies that worked and that need to work in the coming weeks in EuroLeague.
And so, this week on the Coach's Playbook, we're looking at a player who we, sort of loosely referred to in the last section without by name, Giannis Bourousis, who, a lot has changed between last season and this season for Giannis Bourousis. And for a lot more on this, because he's put together a fantastic table of info on it, Moshe, what on earth has happened to Giannis Bourousis?
As I'm talking right now, I have the table again in front of my eyes just so I can understand, how real it is, how intense it is, because I still cannot believe that maybe the most dominant, the most prolific big man in the competition last year, to see how his numbers declined. Now, the questions that, they need to be asked. Is it about his age? I don't think so. Is it about him being, tamed by the coach? Very much could be. I mean, his minutes, for example, they went down by, over 6.5 minutes. And 6.5 minutes, that's like some serious playing time. And his numbers are down accordingly. Now, the numbers are down accordingly, not just because of the minute issue. It's because, the way he was playing in Baskonia, he was managing the offense, he was the target player, and on top of everything, his numbers, take a look at his distribution. He had 2.2 assists last year. This year he has 1, and that is something that means that he even creates less for his teammates. He's taken 31 less 3-point attempts. He's taken 84 less 2-point attempts. 84, and we are now approaching the 25th game of the competition, right? 25th game. So that is special because we're talking the numbers we're providing in the table from the 2015-2016 season was a year in which he played 29 games in the EuroLeague. So just 6 minutes, and get this, he was ranked first at performance index rating per 40 minutes in all games. He was ranked first in home games. He was ranked third in games won. He was ranked fifth on away games. It's simply crazy. If you look at the numbers, we compared for this year, we're talking 38th in all games, 17th in home games, 86th in away games, which is not surprising. The entire team does not perform very well outside of the OACA. It is what it is. But what do you guys make of it?
You go by the numbers, Moshe, and you are more than right. But I believe that the explanation is much more simpler in the case of Bourousis. Bourousis was added to Baskonia almost in the 11th hour last summer. He was thinking about going to China, and he got the chance to play in a solid EuroLeague team. This version of Baskonia was a little bit of a patchwork. It had players that in some case didn't really fit in together, and I'm speaking about Darius Adams mainly. So that created the need for Coach Perasovic to be creative, and somehow Bourousis became the focal point of that version of Baskonia. When Bourousis was on the court, everyone was playing out of him. Everyone was waiting for him to create, to execute, to make things happen. This is not the case with Panathinaikos. From the first time that Bourousis was signed in Panathinaikos, nobody was really expecting for Panathinaikos to be dependent so much on Bourousis, because everyone knew that the defense will be an issue for Bourousis, especially the pick and roll defense. He has improved much in this aspect of his game, but he is still a liability against top teams on those kind of plays. And on the other hand, everyone knew that the offense will go through Kalathis. So Kalathis will have the ball and will make the decisions, not Bourousis. Bourousis could have been at the best the second focal point of the offense, or the second creator. So I believe that considering the change of role, Bourousis has performed at least good enough. He's not the player he was last year, but this has more to do with the team and not with the player himself. I don't believe that it's a matter of Bourousis not playing well, but it's a matter of Panathinaikos deciding not to play Bourousis the way that Baskonia did. And that makes all the difference.
So yeah, with Bourousis, obviously there's that 0.5 factor which Aris was hinting at there, and yeah, it's changed his game, and not necessarily for the better, and it does pose the question of whether he's the right guy for Pau in many respects, because if you're not going to use those other facets that allow him to be more than what he was, he's not ordinary at the 5, but he's not what he can be, and so you're underutilizing an asset, so to speak.
Well, it's like Ari said, his numbers are okay, don't get us wrong. He has an okay numbers for the playing time he's been getting. But, in a season where Panathinaikos are struggling, wouldn't you like to have this experienced big man who pretty much led an entire team to the Final Four? Yes, you would like to have this in your arsenal. And it's not just that. True, he was a 0.5, but he did have both Darius Adams and Mike James, managing himself the entire offense from the from the top side area, from the actually from the right elbow, managing the entire offense of Baskonia back then. He had great slashers, and I'm thinking, you have Chris Singleton being utilized as the 5. Why not try to put him at a 4? With Bourousis trying to manage the offense from the 5 alongside Mike James. Trying to mix it up, all the lineups. It may end up doing something good for Panathinaikos in their run for the playoffs, and not just in the playoffs, actually managing to give a sincere fight when they're there. And, it could prove to be something that would be a game changer for Coach Pascual, should he just consider it. because as we know, Bourousis could do maximum damage in minimum time. It just depends on how you use him. And that's my input on it. Guys, if you agree, just before we move on to our next segment, which is the unknown future with Ekpi Udo.
Yeah, we can't play doctor here because as we're recording this, we're expecting to get updates between now and going to be online. So instead, we're just going to discuss, I suppose, what impact an injury would have for Fener with Udo in any game, essentially. Because a collarbone can be as little as one if it's only a bruise, or it can, of course, be season ending if it's a full break. So there's a lot of wiggle room there. So I suppose, starting with yourself, Moshe, I suppose, fundamentally, like on the floor, what are the issues right here, right now, in a single game situation for Fener without Udo?
Well, just to start off things, they did lose Kostas Lukas as well the week before. So, but losing Udo is a complete different story. Let's start by saying we've agreed, I think, pretty much that even though that Fener had a nice run so far in terms of, their table standings and how many games they've won and how many games they've lost, and we did agree that they were not looking as impressive as we would have expected them to look, especially after a season they ended with being, the runner-ups. It should have given them much more, I don't want to say motivation, maybe more hunger. Something was just not clicking in some games. But losing your best big man, who's probably making a strong case for the DPOY, obviously the Defense Player of the Year, for a guy who's a rim protector who can chase down guards, pretty much the only guy that was consistent throughout the season in each and every single game for Fener, could prove to be just too much. They have Vesely, which is obviously an amazing player, but being honest about it, I would have expected Vesely to have a much more stable season in terms of simply making it a better one just by being more consistent. And losing Udo, again, if it's just one game, it's okay. Even though that they have Zvezda, waiting for them, lurking for them, waiting just to smell the blood and then go for the kill. It doesn't matter. But should they lose him for more than one game? Okay, this is where we start to think long term. How is it going to affect? Because if Fener are going to make it to the Final Four, okay, without having him, this is like a completely different story. I want to remind you guys, 2 years ago, Madrid 2015, Coach Obradovic comes to the press conference, to the opening press conference, and saying that, telling everyone that Bielitsa is not fully fit. And we all know how it ended up for him. I mean, true, they had I think, maybe a better roster than they had the 2 years after, the following 2 years, which we're talking obviously right now. But when you're having such a player in such an important position who was that consistent throughout the season, this could prove to be just too much. Right, Aris?
You are more than right, but the real question now is how long Udo will be out. That's the main point. That it's not up for discussion. It's just a matter of the doctor's exams. So if he is missing just a couple of games, or if he's back in the playoffs, I don't think that this injury will hurt in the long run a lot Fenerbahce, because I don't see how Fenerbahce, because they have bodies, they have Pero Antic and they have Anthony Bennett. I don't see how Fenerbahce will lose the home court advantage at this point, even without Udo. So, on the other hand, the situation with Lucas was pretty much expected. Fenerbahce wanted him to clear his knee in order to be also ready for the playoffs. And about what you said with Fenerbahce kind of underperforming throughout the season, they had also the issue with Bogdanovic, who was stayed out longer than expected in order for him to be fully fit and ready when he was back. So I believe that because this version of EuroLeague is a kind of hybrid and reminds in many aspects the season in the NBA. I believe that Fenerbahce is kind of approaching the season kind of like an NBA season, and having Mauricio Gerardini on board as the GM helps on that. What I am trying to say is that Fenerbahce wanted and has the home court advantage and wants to be fully fit in the playoffs. So this is the point where the team should be truly judged in the playoffs and in the Final Four. Yes, they are not sizzling. They had many mediocre games, especially in the Turkish league, where they can't use all of their foreign non-Turkish players. But in the EuroLeague, the point is this: will Fenerbahce will be at full health in the playoffs? And that's the big question about Udo at this point. If he will be ready for the playoffs, if he does, then they will not have an issue.
So that absence, which is uncertain, but one absence which is, well, doubly certain, I suppose, is the second time he's been released by a side this year. Alessandro Gentile, Ale, you are no longer in Athens, and I suppose going to flip back to Aris to start off with. I suppose, why didn't this work out, Aris, essentially? Why didn't Gentile and Panathinaikos work?
You know, Emmet, I really don't have an answer. It's a well-known fact that Xavi Pascual was a believer of Gentile. He wanted him also when he was in Barcelona, and when he was out in the market from Milan, Panathinaikos took the chance almost immediately and signed him. What we know at this point and what we have seen on the court is that Gentile didn't really fit well with the rest of Panathinaikos team. They were trying to use him as a post-up player in order to create some mismatches with Olympiacos guards, especially after the injury of Daniel Hackett. And for Panathinaikos and Olympiacos, one of the main goals of the season is to outplay each other. So it was obvious that Gentile was going to be an asset, in theory, in those duels. On the other hand, you don't just simply cut a player because he doesn't perform well in such a short period of time. At first, Panathinaikos wanted to sign Gentile also for next season, not just get him on loan like they did in the end with Milan, from Milan. So the question now is obvious. What really happened? And Gentile was cut. There are rumors about him not respecting the chance that he got from Panathinaikos in order to get back his career on track. You can translate this explanation however you want. The point is that he was a bad fit, and now he's in a very hard situation because he can't play until the end of the season in another EuroLeague team. He can't play more. A player can be used for more than 2 EuroLeague teams per season, and also the deadline has expired. The deadline has also expired in the Italian league. He can't return to Milan, or he can't play to another Italian club until the end of the season. And of course, at first, that was also the wish of Milan. They didn't want him to play in another Italian club and have him come up against them probably in the playoffs. And this leaves very few options on the table for him. It's kind of strange that a few months ago he initiated all this mess, saying just after the win of Milan in the Italian league that this was probably his last game in Milan because he wanted out, leaving clues that maybe it was his time to play with the Houston Rockets. The offer from the NBA never came. He returned to Milan. He was stripped as a captain. Andrea Cinciarini is the captain of Milan since the start of the season, and he was cut. He had the chance to a perennial EuroLeague contender like Panathinaikos to get back on track. He missed also this chance, and now the question is where he is going to get another chance. And to make things even more complicated, he still has a contract with Milan for one more season. I don't think that Gentile will end up being a cautionary tale for young stars, that they have also to have some discipline in order to perform in the high level. I believe that he's too talented and too smart for not ending up just as a cautionary tale. He still has a lot of basketball inside him, and he will have the ability to show it, but where he will end up and what his future will be at this point is just a riddle.
You know, Aris, you are more than right. First, it amazes me because I want to say that, in my opinion, I think that right now Gentile is in crossroads. I mean, we're looking at a talent who got waived twice in one season. Now, it's not NBA, which you can say, okay, it happens. It's how it goes. We're talking two EuroLeague teams that at the beginning of the season, they pretty much said it all. They said, we're gunning for everything. We want to restore our former glory. And, you know, looking at it from the Panathinaikos side, I don't know if it's, you know, like you said, because of him maybe disrespecting coach, then okay, it's an understandable decision. But if it's because that they were waiting on James Gist to come back, well, newsflash, you never know how a player comes back from an injury that kept him out for so long. So from that point of view, that might have been a mistake. I don't know, because we really do have to acknowledge the fact. I want to go back with you guys to the 2013-2014 season. I know you're probably going to say, yeah, happy days for you, Moshe. But, you know, kidding aside, that was in a lot of ways one of, you know, Gentile made it like he had an amazing season right until that point where he got injured in 2013-2014. Then a Gentile-less Milan played against Maccabi, you know, in the playoffs. We all remember how it ended. The year after, he opens up great, playing 6 games for Milan, then gets injured again. Ever since, he's been struggling. Now, take a look at his stats from the last 5 games with Panathinaikos. Look at his assist column. How much does he have? We're talking about a player that Ari said it perfectly. This guy needs to post up in order to create for the other players. He has to pass the ball on. This is how his offensive talent is being utilized for the best ways. You know, he could post, maybe go all the way, maybe pass the ball outside, then maybe run for a sure play. He's very talented, very, he's diversified. But with the way, you know, you can see his numbers, and I got to be honest with you guys, I am not a person who sticks to the numbers, because we always look for something that's hiding within. There are a lot of things that numbers do not tell. But with Gentile, I cannot help wondering how come that his passing numbers, his assists are going down exponentially. What happened to him after those injuries? What happens to him mentality-wise? I mean, take a look at all the stars we're seeing. Take a look at Žižić, how he's making. He's had, without a doubt, a breakout season in the EuroLeague. He's proved that he's belonged there in the highest levels. We're seeing Luka Doncic and his mentality. But something is just off with Gentile in recent years. I cannot put my finger and pinpoint exactly saying, okay, this is wrong, this is good. But one thing is for certain, something there is not clicking for now. And I'm saying he's at crossroads simply for the fact that, you know, you kind of being tagged when you're kind of thrown off from 2 teams in 1 year. And actually the year even we're getting to the peak of this year. So, Emmett, what's your intake on this entire, Gentile gate?
Well, like, it's a mess, Moshe. That's what it is. Gentile has made things a mess for himself. Now, like, let's not pretend any of the clubs are angelic here, like, because I'm sure there's plenty of egos on those sides. But Gentile would know this going into it, and I think he overplayed his own hand in Milan, and he didn't really learn to curb that back and use the opportunity in Athens to really show, with a chance of Panathinaikos to go, yeah, Milano, you messed up. Where, if he'd gone in with the right attitude, I think he would have done absolutely fine at POW, irrespective of what was asked of him on the court. Because, he is a grinder in terms of his capacity to play as a baller. So, if he wants to, he could have made that work much better than it did. Clearly, upstairs, you've got to ask the question of where his head was at this season, and really coming off the back of last season as well, where he was playing with a Milano side that admittedly struggled a lot in EuroLeague and later Euro Cup, but they did win a bloody championship in Italy. Like, he had at least some reason to be positive, and then, yeah, maybe he should have left Milano earlier, as in a year or two earlier, to be frank about it, because it did feel like, whatever the talent part, the ego part was definitely a big fish in in there, and he needed somewhere which could better handle his views of his own capacity as a baller, which is a very politically correct way of phrasing it, as in basically a place which you could deal with a guy who thinks he's that brilliant. Now, he is a good player, but like, I don't really want to get into trouble with Gentile. He might actually come after me and hurt me, but he's not like he's not Milos. Okay, you're never going to be Milos. So yeah, that's the issue there. I think he'll be fine, though. I really do. Not this season. He may get somewhere to finish out a National League campaign, obviously. But come the summer, bottom line is, players of his talent level still aren't that easy to find. And somebody's going to want him. They just will. And also, you'll get the odd coach who thinks, I can fix him. I can totally do it. Because coaches have egos too. So I think it'll be grand. It's a lost season, but I'd argue last season was in many respects a lost season as well, unless you count a Serie A campaign, even though he had good numbers. So that sort of wraps us up on the coach's playbook, and we're looking ahead now to what's in store in the days to come as we hit round 25. We're reaching that home stretch of EuroLeague, so here we go. It's the games of the week.
The past is in the past. What's done is done. It's time to look forward. Here's our games of the week.
So after having a long edition of the coach's playbook, which was definitely needed, to be honest, we like our coaches, we like their playbooks, as well as their scouts and their notebooks. But now is the time for the games of the week. And guys, are we looking at an injured retaliation with Fener hosting Baskonia? A quick bounce to the past, a blast to the past shows us that Baskonia obliterated Fener in the first round. They pretty much dominated in every aspect of that game. Like, are we obviously we're expecting a different scenario, but with Baskonia pretty much with their backs up against the wall, in a manner of speaking, obviously, because they are in a better situation than Dachka for the last playoff spot. But still, what are we expecting from this game with probably a Slukas and Udo-less Fener hosting Baskonia?
Actually, that's an interesting question, Moshe, because I don't really know what to expect, because, Toko appears to be okay again, which is a huge difference for Baskonia, putting it mildly. So it's not entirely implausible that Baskonia come out and rip into Fener, but that just doesn't sound plausible in Istanbul. So that's, it's one of those things where, like, the matchups look like it says it could happen, but my gut says it won't happen. So I think we should get a close one here. Fener can adapt. We're going to see a good bit more, I think, of Bennett and Duverioglu because, well, Obradovic doesn't really have a choice in the matter. Like, I've got a lot of time for Duverioglu's game. I think he's very good at what he does, which isn't meant to be as euphemistic as it sounds, but when you've got a guy who knows his role that well in short usage and he can just basically do what he's there to do, that's the type of guy who can be productive and not get in the way. If Bennett can basically be like an advanced version of that, I think it could be enough. It's still a huge ask. I'm still, though, I'm leaning towards a Fener win here despite the lack of Udo. Aris, what do you reckon this game is going to be like?
I totally agree with you. I expect a very close game, and I believe that we have talked about how Panathinaikos is underperforming on the road. The same can be said about Baskonia. Baskonia is a team that, especially this year, is it's demonstrated almost all its strengths at home. On the road, they are pretty inconsistent, and I believe that in the end it will be very hard for them to get a win in Istanbul against Fenerbahce, which is probably the best, not probably, by the numbers, is the best Turkish EuroLeague team, even if we have Anadolu Efes emerging and maybe making a run for the 5th place. Still, I believe that the most interesting game in every possible aspect this week is Olympiacos versus Darussafaka. Simply put, because at this point every defeat for Darussafaka will be a disaster. They are in danger. They are trying to make a run for the playoffs, even if Baskonia gets defeated by Fenerbahce. They still have 13 wins. So Darussafaka is at 50%, is at 12-12. So they just don't have the luxury at this point to lose games and just don't care. We have to add that Baskonia has beaten Darussafaka by 21 points at home, so they have the home court. They have the tie-breaking advantage because they have been defeated by 9 in Istanbul. So the clock is ticking for Darussafaka, and against Olympiacos, who might be at full strength. Spanoulis is expected to return. Patrick Young has already returned. Even without those two, the team have performed very consistently during the last weeks. This will be a real test for Darussafaka, and it also might be one of their last stands in order to catch the playoffs. From now on, automatically, I believe that every Darussafaka game is going to be, if not the game of the week, certainly one game to watch.
Yeah, I gotta go with you there with that, Aris. I think until Darussafaka are in a huge hole, like they're in trouble, but until they're in a huge hole, like they're kind of appointment television. And quick note, that's Olympiacos. Like they're third at 17-7, only a game outside of first, and have played really consistent despite having to adapt quite a bit to injuries this year. So it's like I would never call Olympiacos sneaky good because they're Olympiacos, but like they've definitely done probably better than you might expect. Like considering what they've managed the last couple of weeks. I suppose Moshe. So that's DDI and Oli. What else are you looking at this week?
Well, first, I really want to address the DDI Oli game. Picture this. This has actually happened in Tel Aviv last week. Patrick Young enters the gym after the game, going on a treadmill. Now, for players who haven't played, this is, it's okay. No, it's a known situation. This is what they should do. But the thing is, the look he had in his eyes, the way he was talking, the guy is hungry. He really wants to get back on the court. And Olympiacos, should they get the good old Patrick Young? Now, we're not talking ever again on Olympiacos in a sense of, a great team that can finish third, maybe second, and maybe has a chance of making a run to the title, but not as a contender. With a healthy Patrick Young, we're talking it's a different story. For Darussafaka, understandably, they will have to counter Olympiacos' defensive game, and they will try to run as much as they can. They have the weapons. They have the strategies, they have the coach for it. The question is, could they out-defend more than they can outscore a team? Now, Olympiacos, seeing them, it's a pure pleasure. The defensive adjustments, the way they react. I mean, even without Spanoulis, listen, Maccabi were missing like 4 players, but it didn't matter. You saw Olympiacos playing at ease, knew exactly what they want to do, knew how to get it. Now, for me, this is like the first game I want to tune in, even more than Fener Baskonia, even though I'm still wondering, who are the players to shine in that game in Istanbul. And speaking of Istanbul, by the way, we're still, shortly expecting a nice game with Efes and Bamberg, knowing that Efes is also in the mix in that amazing standoff. True, they have the advantage over Baskonia and Darussafaka, so for the time being, they are on the safe side. But this is a game we should not overlook either way. Guys, another game, Real Madrid Zvezda. Is this payback?
Hello, Belgrade. It's me again. Our running thing where the curse is broken. Okay, I've got you right 3 weeks in a row. So whether I have some mystical powers over your results or not is out of the way. Bottom line is Zvezda. They're playing very well. They're playing consistently, and they're getting the results. They're taking on a Madrid team which had a bit of a shocker last week. That kind of a shocker tends to lead to a reaction game. And you look at the talent of Madrid, and also they are looking at making sure they lock down a first or at least second spot in the table. So all that being said, much as I expect Zvezda to come out and put up a good performance, Real will win. Simple as. Aris, over to you.
I agree that Real is the favorite and Zvezda is going to give a fight, but probably that will not be enough. But the fact that we're still 5 weeks and 6 rounds away from the end of the regular season, and Zvezda is virtually a lock for the playoffs is a story by its own. And I don't see how the Serbs will be left out of the playoffs no matter what happens in the game against Madrid. And the really interesting implication of this game will be the fact that if Zvezda somehow manages to upset Madrid, the race for the top will be open again. And this race will also include Olympiacos. The fact is that the Greeks have lost by 20 points or something at the first game against Real, so they don't have the tie-breaking advantage, even though they are going to play against Real at home. I don't believe that Olympiacos can beat the Spanish team that bad and get the tie-breaking back. And also Olympiacos has to face at the last game of the regular season CSKA Moscow on the road. So this can be an interesting side story, even though Olympiacos is not the favorite to finish, of course, on top of the standings. But we really don't know yet who will be on top. So both Real Madrid and CSKA Moscow have to finish the season strong, because they will probably not miss the home court advantage, but we will probably also not know until the last second which will be the couple of the playoffs. So even those kind of things have to be alert until the end.
Guys, the smart money goes with Madrid. That's a very easy pick, to be honest. But you know what? Just for the funs of it, what would happen, like you guys said, should Zvezda pull off a Hail Mary and just beat Madrid, who, to the best of my knowledge, and the table that we've discussed last week, their biggest losing streak was of just 1 game. So let's just say that they have the luxury for now, allegedly, to lose another game. If they lose that, it means that Zvezda can actually go for a fight on the, for the top four. And like I said, I'm going with Madrid, but either way, I'm not going to be surprised because Radonic and Zvezda have proven that they are more than capable of doing great things, even on away games, even though we have to remember that when Madrid arrived to Belgrade, they were missing a few players.
Well, that's all we got time for this week on Sweet 16. As ever, you can find me at BIE_basketball, Facebook.com/ Ball on Europe, and balloneurope.com, where, well, I'll be keeping doing the people's work as well as everything else. Aris, where can they find you?
Well, you can find me as always around Eurohoops in the website and the social media channels of the portal, and also you can look me as Andreas Aris Barkas, which is my full name on the Facebook, and that's as R Barkas on Twitter.
And you can find me on Twitter at MosesB1. I am Team Scout on the website, teamscout.net, Facebook. Just look it up, Team Scout. And guys, also don't forget, this show will be featured on Eurohoops TV YouTube channel and on SoundCloud. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget that every day is a EuroLeague day. This was a massive episode of Sweet 16, an open look on EuroLeague basketball. Till next time.
Sweet 16, an open look on
EuroLeague basketball.
Covering 16
EuroLeague teams.
Gonna be sweet. Sweet 16.